So apparently I am an INFP-A. If you have no idea what that means, don't worry, we're getting there. And if you do know what it means, just hang with me for a minute because this isn't the video you think it is. INFP stands for introverted, intuitive, feeling, perceiving. The A means assertive, which honestly feels like something they added so people like me would feel slightly better about ourselves. According to 16 personalities, I am the mediator. Idealistic, deeply creative. Yeah, all right, fair enough. I might argue the creative part, but okay. I actually took the test years ago, so this isn't one of those I fell down an internet quiz rabbit hole situations. It came back up because some of you mentioned it after my floater friend video, and it got me thinking again. Hey everybody, I'm Rachel. Welcome back to the channel. Now, when I took the actual Myers-Briggs assessment, not the free online version, but the one administered by somebody certified that I worked with, she told me that I sat right on the line between INFP and INFJ. Too chaotic for one, not quite the other, which may actually be the most accurate thing anybody has ever said about me. But here's my angle on all of this. I minored in psychology in college. I was this close to a double major because I loved it that much, but I hated college enough that I wanted out as fast as possible. And then later I ended up working in personnel, so I wasn't exactly going in blind. I knew what Myers-Briggs was trying to measure. And still, I felt that little pull, that little voice saying, well, maybe this explains me. Because that's what labels do. They offer relief. They tell us we're understood. But here's the other thing about me. I absolutely hate being categorized. Put me in a box and I immediately start looking for the exits. The walls start closing in. I notice every part of myself that does not belong there, and suddenly the box feels less like self-knowledge and more like a really small room with no windows, almost claustrophobic. Turns out, I'm just not very good at staying in boxes. The short version is, I don't fit neatly in either one. Shocker, I know. What interested me more wasn't whether I was an INFP or an INFJ. It was why I wanted to know the answer in the first place. Because every personality type comes with a story. Some of them even come with a little mythology. The rare empath, the misunderstood visionary, the old soul. Spend enough time online and you would think that half the population is somehow one of the rarest personality types ever discovered, which makes the word rare do some pretty heavy lifting. Now, don't get me wrong, if your personality type genuinely helped you understand yourself, I am not here to take that away from you. But I do want to poke at it a little, because I think there's something way more interesting underneath it than and that's just kind of what I like to do. I kind of like to poke the bear a little bit. Now, despite what people think, Myers-Briggs isn't actually a Jung test. It was created by a mother and a daughter who wanted to make Carl Jung's ideas accessible, which honestly was a pretty admirable goal because his writings aren't exactly beach reads. Jung was still alive when all of this was being developed, but he didn't exactly rush to endorse it. He constantly warned against turning personality into a rigid classification system. He called it an orientation tool, something to help you get your bearings, not define who you are. Myers-Briggs gave us accessibility, yeah, but it accidentally took away the point. Somewhere along the way, the map became the destination. But Jung's real obsession wasn't personality types. It was what he called individuation, which sounds intimidating, but really isn't. Individuation is the lifelong process of becoming a whole person instead of settling for a socially acceptable version of one. He called that socially acceptable version the persona, the mask, the version that's easiest to explain at parties. And a personality test can become another mask, a neat explanation, a ready-made identity. I'm an INFP. I'm a type 8. I'm just wired this way. Maybe. Partly. But you're also contradictory, inconsistent, totally capable of surprising yourself. capable of changing your mind. The acronym never captures that part. The real work, the uncomfortable stuff, is letting yourself become somebody who doesn't fit neatly into any description. Which brings me to why none of this is actually about personality tests. Because we don't just do this with Myers-Briggs. We do it with everything. We put ourselves in boxes. Then we look around the room and we start putting everybody else into boxes too. Political parties, religions, parenting styles, vegans, carnivores, boomers, Gen X, millennials, Tesla owners, Subaru owners, homeschoolers, whatever. Once somebody is safe inside a category, we stop seeing an individual. We see our idea of that category. And that's where things get dangerous. Because the minute somebody says something that doesn't belong in the box we assign them, that's not just unexpected. They are wrong, or fake, or a traitor. And nowhere is easier to see this than in politics. Not because one side does it, because all sides do it. We wear the jersey, and after a while, we stop asking ourselves whether we actually believe something or whether we've just been wearing that jersey so long we have forgotten there's a difference. Jung watched entire societies do exactly this in real time in pre-war Europe. He watched a lot of people trade the hard work of becoming individuals for the comfort of belonging to the tribe. He called it the collective shadow. It's what happens when people stop asking, what do you actually think? And start asking, what are people like me supposed to think? That is a totally different question. And I honestly think that's part of why so many people feel exhausted and unstable right now. It feels like nuance is disappearing. You're supposed to fit your box perfectly, and if you don't, people get suspicious. But maybe the box was never the point. Maybe the point was always becoming somebody too complicated to fit inside one. Funny thing is, the boxes themselves keep changing. Political parties and ideologies change, movements change, culture changes, even we change. So being loyal to a label starts making less and less sense. And people are starting to feel that. Independent voter registration in the U.S. is at an all-time high. Not because people stopped caring, because the box stopped fitting. That is not disengagement. That is individuation. Whether they call it that or not, looks an awful lot like it to me. Because being loyal to your values, that's different. That takes thinking. Sometimes changing your mind. Sometimes disappointing your own team. Sometimes admitting, I don't know, or it's complicated. I don't think that's weakness. I think that is maturity. You cannot fix tribalism by yourself. You can't eliminate the collective shadow. You can't single-handedly bring nuance back to the internet. That is totally outside your control. But you can refuse to let labels replace curiosity. You can refuse to reduce yourself or the people around you to 4 letters, one political party, one generation, one stereotype. You can let people stay complicated, including yourself. Maybe that's what Jung was pointing towards all along. Not certainty or identity or finding the perfect box, but becoming somebody who no longer needs one. Apparently, I am an INFP-A with some INFJ mixed in. Too chaotic for one, not quite the other. That works for me. Telling me I don't fit into a particular box. I never liked descriptions that much anyway. Now, no surprise, I'm leaving you with the song. Go listen to Changes by David Bowie, and really listen. Most people think it's about life changing around you. I don't. I think it's about becoming somebody who refuses to stay trapped inside yesterday's version of yourself. Bowie spent his entire career creating personas. Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, the Thin White Duke, and then blowing it up and walking away from them the minute they became cages. He didn't spend his life trying to discover the perfect label. He spent it refusing to confuse a label with a life. And he didn't find himself despite all those changes. He found himself because of them. Turn and face the strange, not a bad philosophy. Thanks for sticking with me this far. Take care of you, and I will see you the next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.